Hey there everyone, this is Omar once again with Meet a Geek. Today I am joined by somebody I have not met yet, but I'm very happy to meet today. Her name is Sandra Lamb. How you doing, Sandra?
Hey, pretty good, Omar. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Very happy to be here and talk with you. I know we had like a bit of a warm-up session talking about all sorts of things from like politics to parenting, back to politics, and a little bit more parenting kind of thrown in there, which is cool. Like I'm really glad that now that I am a parent, I can actually talk about these things with other parents and hear
You
different.
mean you didn't talk about them before?
I mean, I couldn't. I'm like, yeah, I could imagine being a parent. Somebody else depending on me for food, shelter, essentially life, maybe.
Yeah.
Like I had a hamster once.
Dude, I barely had a dog.
Well, very cool. So let's get right into it. And of course, the big question everyone wants to know, who are you?
All right, you ready?
I am so ready.
So this is what I said is gonna be funny. So my name is Sandra Miriam González-Lamb,
Wow.
according to my mom. So that is why I just said just stick with Sandra Lamb, because according to her, I have 5 names and I should be using them.
Yeah, my mother
all the time.
says. Yeah, my mother says my name is Omar Leonardo Quimbaez Endron Cosmes Rodriguez Santiago. That's the whole name, and it's
Oh
like,
my God, that was like 4 or 5. Yeah, that's right up there with me. Yeah.
yeah, it's just being Latino, I guess. It's that Spanish heritage.
Well, and she tells it to me like, and it's kind of romantic. I mean, it's like, okay, we became a union,
Hmm.
and you are, one of the outcomes of that, and that's why we combine names in our culture, which I think is sweet, right?
Yeah,
Because that's the goal, and you belong to both sides. Like both sides of the family have joined, so therefore join the name. But in the U.S., I'm like, yeah, but I can't get my prescription at Walgreens with that name.
yeah. They can't put that on a pill bottle. It's just gonna wrap around the bottle like twice. It's like,
Like, yeah, no, I'm not, and I do not want to get them upset because I have 2 kids, and like I pick up all their medicine for everybody, including
hmm.
my husband. But yeah, that's who I am in name. I'm
Okay.
also a parent, as you mentioned,
Hmm.
a member of Geekdom. I am passionate about social innovation, ed tech, gardening, eating good food. I'm definitely a foodie.
It's very
And
important. Eating is very important. It keeps you alive.
yeah, basically, yeah, like sometimes it's more like drinking, like coffee, water, wine in that order. And then I'm like, maybe I should eat something good today. So, depends on the day.
If it's a Wednesday, like, oh, that tiramisu looks really good.
Yes, I'm taking up this whole chocolate cake for me.
Nice. Very nice. We don't have a weight problem.
Hey, it's COVID. That's the excuse for everything that lately.
That's right. We have a happiness problem. We are
I'm
too
like,
happy.
I'm like the rules I have to totally gone out the door. Like if my kid gets up and goes to class, like if I get up, I'm like, hey, I'm here.
That's a win.
I made it. Hey.
That's a win.
Yep. Yep.
So, Sandra, what
So,
do you do?
so right now, currently, I work as a career coach at one of the Alamo Colleges for my day job.
Cool.
And I guess now that we're parents 24/7, I help take care of my family
Hmm.
because I have no choice, right? We have no choice anymore. We have
I mean, there's always a
right.
choice, but there's the wrong choice, and then there's the right choice.
Yeah. So I do that 24/7. And on the side, I work on a startup called Wiin, which stands for Work in Industry Now. And I also, since it's been COVID, I've been doing a lot of Netflix binge watching. So I think that I should say that that's who I am now because I don't remember anything before March that involved so much binge watching TV shows that I never watched before.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that. Yeah, that is really I remember February because we had really big losses in my family at that time. I
Oh dear, I'm sorry.
it's okay. I remember I don't really remember January, except I started a job in January that I left last week. And
Yes, yes,
yeah, and then and then March hit, and then everything shut down. And do you remember like there was this idea that we were going to get back to normal like really soon, or this was going to pass really soon, and then it
yeah.
didn't. It kept getting worse, and we kept having to adapt to this new life that we have because they say it's like it's a new normal, but the way I see it, it's like it's the now normal. It's not the new normal, it's the now normal. It's what we're living in
Yeah.
right now. And maybe that's what new normal means. I don't know. I just wanted to sound deep.
Yeah, you did
Just for
certainly
a
sound deep.
second.
I just think it's pretty effed up. I don't like it. But, I can't do anything about it. Just, I be grateful that, we have income. Our kids are healthy. I'm healthy. All of that stuff that you're supposed to say. But in reality, I'm like, God, this sucks.
Yeah. Well, tell me this. Like you're a you said career counselor, right? For Alamo Colleges?
Yep. So I tell people and help guide them on their pathway for their careers.
So how has that changed because of, 2020 and COVID?
Yeah. Basically, it's changed to where a lot of our students are just working because they have to, right? Their
Right.
parents or caregivers may not that they weren't working before, right? Mostly everybody that goes to college 2 years or 4 years has to work, which I think is one of the one of the big failures of our society that you cannot go to school and enjoy it. You have to work, right? I don't believe that it should be like that.
Yeah.
But we've lost a lot of students to full-time jobs. And as a matter of fact, yesterday I was talking to a high school career coach as well, and which is would be my counterpart at high school. And
Mm-hmm.
right now they're just trying to get the students engaged. And I think she said that she wanted a public service announcement stating to like stop hiring minors because some of them are not of age to work.
Wow.
But like that's happening because they need to help their families,
Right.
and that's more important, like basic food and shelter, right? Um, but
Yeah,
we've been
wow.
able to retain some students part time. I would say not so much full time, and that's across the country. So the we had no I had no expectations otherwise.
Yeah, so the thing that you and I were talking about beforehand was, it's difficult to find a career that's sort of perfectly matched up with what your major is, right? Unless it's like a more towards like engineering or medicine or something along those lines. Those are more very focused and specialized. But I mean,
Yep.
for example, like I have an English degree and I work in engineering, and I took a very roundabout way to get there, but I'm still here, right?
Yep.
So for as a career counselor and kind of knowing that like these days people don't stay in jobs for decades anymore, like they are going from one place to another. So when you're talking about careers, you're not really just talking about you're not talking about a job, you're talking about like a particular pathway. So how do you help people in college kind of understand the new milieu, or like the current way of how working works, and do you help some of those people who they might have an idea, do you kind of like guide them more towards entrepreneurship and help them kind of go in that direction? It's kind of a two-part question, so feel free to pick whichever part you want to pick first.
Sure. Um, I would say that I try very hard to to tell folks, and keep in mind this may be young students or returning adults
Mm-hmm.
seeking, a new career.
Yeah.
Um, the hardest folks to convince, if believe it or not, would be the caregivers, the parents, like that their child may have multiple jobs because they grew up in a time where they didn't have multiple jobs, right?
Yeah.
And that was like not the expectation. So for the younger students, it's mostly convincing the parent. Like, yes, this is a liberal arts, but this means that gets them to this college and then they can transfer, right? And they need a
Right.
graduate degree for psychology, which then the parents are like, no, nobody makes money doing that. And that's kind of the thing, like, you know, it's important that you earn money to self-sustain yourself, right? But I
Yeah.
kind of feel like the living wage, minimum wage hasn't gone up in our country. And you really don't have a choice anymore.
Right.
So we're losing out on those potential geniuses, potential innovators, potential folks that could have solved lots of problems, global warming, right? Poverty, because they're having to go this route, right? And we can't no longer let them freely be out of school without having to work to help support either their family, immediate family, or themselves, which I think is one of the biggest disillusions for me from our society. I think the second part of the question, if I recall correctly, was about entrepreneurship.
Right.
Technically, that's supposed to be a business major, but we do have an entrepreneurship program, and that's my favorite. And I kind of talk to the dean a lot. And I don't know if you recall Dr. Hitesh Nathani.
I remember
Uh,
Hitesh. Yeah.
yeah, so he was a mentor and good friend of mine before he passed.
Yeah.
And he's the reason that I'm moving forward with my startup.
That's wonderful. I mean, I'm glad that you're kind of keeping up his legacy by doing that, because I know that
Yeah.
would really excite him. He'd be really happy for you.
Yeah, and then I ran into somebody else just randomly, and they're like, Hitish told me about you, and he expected great things of you. And I just, of course, started bawling.
Yeah.
And then I think, like, within the same month, like, I was looking, this was like in May or June when I was like, I gotta do something else, right? I
Hmm.
had already started the reflection period that people say you're doing during COVID, or you may not be doing, but most people are. And so I went to Geekdom, and then oh no, I take that back. That's a lie. I went there for a meeting for one of the boards that I serve on,
Okay.
and I went into his boardroom, and I didn't even know that they had named a boardroom after him.
Yeah.
And then I saw his picture, and it was like, this is a sign. Like, I could hear his voice, like, "Hey, get off your ass! Come on, move it." And so after that, like, that was last year actually. I just started moving forward and faster, and it's been going pretty well so far, thanks to Geekdom, and just thinking about like our conversations before and what he envisioned for our community and for our children in the future.
Definitely. Yeah. And it was a huge loss to our community when he did pass away suddenly. And he was a
Mm-hmm.
friend to everybody. So I'm really, really glad that you've been motivated by him, and keep him alive in your thoughts and in your
Yeah, I do.
actions as well. That's really wonderful. I'm sure that, man, I'm sure he would be really happy to hear all that.
Thank you.
But
Yeah.
so tell me more about Win, because I feel like you said about ed tech, the things you're passionate about. Tell me about this entrepreneurial engagement, or this thing that you're trying to do. Tell us more about it, and where you kind of see this going.
Sure. So Gwen is working industry now, and I think I mentioned earlier, I feel like a lot of our students are working most of the time while they're going to college, right? So I
Hmm.
kind of feel like most of the time they're working and they're going to school, the work isn't aligned with their major
Right.
or with, right? And they don't know. And sometimes why, it's just, you just need to make money, right? And so when in the past, how many years? Almost 15 years I've been in higher ed. I've become really good at working on resumes and cover letters for students
Sure.
and being their reference, right? But I'm like, shouldn't they be working on something related to nursing or at least get into that environment, even if it's front desk? And so the idea came about like, maybe we should have them start doing some work in high school since a lot of them are already working related to something they're interested in, right? And have a potential. Um, let's see what their potential skill set is before being credentialed, right? Credentialed mean like an associate's, bachelor's, master's, whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Before they
Because
get degree. Yeah.
yeah, because we're losing out on this workforce, which I think we're going to be like bombarded with after COVID, right? We're losing out on this workforce that, you know, for the most part, a lot of millennials and the new generation are self-training, right? You can go to YouTube, you can sign up for a webinar. I mean, I've known students that have learned programming on their own.
Yep.
Yet their major is not programming, and I'm like, if you want to, you need to make more money. So why don't you get a job in that? You know, and the response is missed. You know, there's no way they'd hire me, and I'd have to do a cover letter, and I can't write about myself. You know, so I figured like, you know, why can't we turn that around and pick up a phone and be like, just like you call your Uber, you link in your community what your skill set is, your potential skill set. That includes also your emotional IQ with maybe a part-time job, an apprenticeship, a full-time job, and you put it in your resume. Everything's in there. You don't have to submit a new resume. You don't have to write up a cover letter because your profile is there, and it's more than Indeed, it's more than LinkedIn, but it's mostly for young folks, so that they can make minimum, not minimum, living wages, and they could also experience a job related to what they're passionate about before they get into college and realize their senior year, like I did, that my internship should have been done my sophomore year, and I would have realized my undergrad was like not what I wanted to do.
Wow.
So that's what we're working on: an app, and then a video game, and then
How does the video game play into this?
oh, that is so cool. I'm glad you asked. So, you know, we would like to extract, like, are you an introvert, extrovert? Do you like interacting with a lot of folks? Are you the type of person that likes numbers, but only accounting type numbers, or numbers like, you know, finance numbers, all through a video game? And we would put that on a data set, linked with categories, very similar to what's called ONET. And that's this really actually cool government database. It's one of the best databases that's public. So we would put that all in a database, and it would pop up like, okay, this is what you like, what you do not like. And I believe that knowing what you don't like is almost as important as what you do like in terms of everything, right? Food,
Sure,
your partner, your passions. And if you figure out what you don't like early, like that'll save you a lot of heartache and time. And so the video game will extract, by playing, it'll be a fun video game. We're going to target the young folks, like high school, college, and then see where it goes from there. But we'll be able to build a data set on your potential skill sets, which is also, like I mentioned earlier, emotional, mental health. And then, you know, you'd be able to have that information for yourself. We would have it too, but that would give you an idea, like, for your career while you're having fun playing. Because I know people that just play video games just to find out, like, are they going to win, or it's just been hyped up, or, you know, the video game needs money and they're pitching it, and somebody just developed it on the weekend. So
That's called
I
Flappy
feel
Bird.
I feel like, hey, let's meet our youth where they're at, right? And that is one of the places. They're not like writing cover letters, submitting resumes. They're like on their phone and on video games. And so that's where Wiin came up. That's how Wiin came about, and that's our goal and what we're working on right now.
That is excellent. That is really cool. I mean, those are some interesting ideas, like being able to, based on some sort of interactivity, be able to determine a person's personality and kind of help them discover themselves and have a better idea of who they are by interacting with this particular medium. And then whether that might be the app or the game. That's interesting. That's a very interesting idea. I'd love to see that catch on and have those people get the help that they need. Because I can tell you this. When I was in college, like 13,000 years ago, when my professor was a brontosaurus, there was an organization called the Hispanic Associations of Colleges and Universities. And I was going to... Yeah, Haku. I was going to SAC at the time, and they said, like, hey, you should apply to this. You should check it out. So I did, and I managed to get an internship. I wanted to get an internship in the State Department because I wanted to learn about diplomacy and foreign diplomacy. Because, like, at the time, I was like, I want to be a diplomat. Like, I want to go to another country, and I want to, spread, the U.S. goodness and help people who need the help. And then they said, like, no, you're going to go to the CDC.
Center for Disease Control?
Yeah. So, like, the majority of people who are all part of Haku, they all stayed in D.C., where me and, like, 5 other people went to Atlanta to live there, and we were all going to the CDC, and we were all working in different departments. They put me as an intern in the public relations part of the CDC. So I got to talk to reporters. Like, I got to meet Sanjay Gupta of CNN.
Ooh,
yeah,
I like him.
When he came to the CDC to talk about the flu, because it was the flu season. And, like, I remember all, like, the PR officers that they were there, they're like, it's flu season. It's going to get really crazy. We're going to get really stressed out. Like, there's going to be, like, calls for everything. People are going to panic. Like, oh, my God. Like, I cannot imagine being at the CDC when COVID hit. Like, if things were bad for the flu, like, when COVID hits, you're like, it's burning down.
Do not leave the office. You will be accosted.
I know. And so, like, I was, like, fielding calls from, like, the Oprah Winfrey Show and, like, the Daily Show and all these different news programs, all asking for, statements from the CDC or wanting to talk to one of the PR officers. And so I basically triaged those calls. Like, I just intern stuff. But it was a really interesting experience being able to work as an intern for the federal government in the Department of Health and Human Services in PR of all things. And so that kind of got me thinking, like, okay, well, I can utilize these skills, or I can continue to grow these skills in a certain way. And one of my roommates, he was like, hey, if you really care about international diplomacy, you should actually go abroad. Like, you shouldn't stay here. You should go abroad and start learning new things. So he was like, come to UTSA, go into the College of Business. They will give you a scholarship to go to China, and you can spend a semester in China learning the language, learning business in China, making connections over there. And that's what I did. So 2 semesters of my college career, one of them was spent in Atlanta working for the CDC. Another one was spent in Shanghai learning Chinese, learning business, meeting people from all over the world. People from Morocco, Montreal, Ireland, and then, like, a lot of Germans and a lot of French.
Super cool.
I was the only American on campus in Shanghai at the university I went to. I was the only American.
Wow.
So I was able to represent my country in the best way I knew how. By jiggling my hips in the club. That's what I did.
I was gonna say I'm wearing like a Simpsons Pokemon t-shirt or something.
No. No, that wasn't me, but I had a good time. It was one of the best times of my life, and I still
And
remember
maybe
that.
that wouldn't have happened if you've gone to DC with everybody else.
Yeah, like it wouldn't have happened. Something different would have happened. And so, what's the cool thing about kind of these programs and things that you do is that it opens doors for people. And it's really up to the individual whether or not they want to step through that door, take a risk, and do something. But I can tell you this, having the right mentors and having the right counselors really make a difference in a person's life. It's just a point in a direction, and that person chooses to go in that direction, or they choose not to, they choose to go in a different direction. But it's that gentle push that makes things so much different way down the line, right?
Yep.
And you never know
agree.
what sort of experiences help shape your career or the decisions that you make later on in life. You live day by day, but then you realize after a while, like, whoa, so much time has passed and all of these things happened, and it's because of these things that happened so long ago that has really brought me to where I am today. So it's a really cool thing of what you're trying to do for the students at the Alamo Colleges as well as with Wiin. It's a really
And not
important
everybody
thing.
would get to have an opportunity to travel abroad like you did.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of first gen students, which is short for first generation, especially minorities, brown, black, don't get that opportunity. But if they can get that opportunity within our city at a firm or at a place related to, graphic design or just something they're really interested in, I feel that they would be able, the agreement with our company would be, they would have to have a mentor, and we would have coordinators helping that piece. But I feel like that would be much more exposure and, to something that they could do, and it would also help high schools in the sense that it would help with their persistence, which means they would graduate, they would finish.
Right.
Because like I was one of those straight A students that would have quit like if I wasn't afraid of my dad
Yeah.
killing me. But I just didn't. I wasn't doing hands-on, and I'm a project-based learner, so I just went through it. Had didn't they? My parents didn't let me work, so it was quite boring, except for volleyball season. and
Nice.
but
Nice.
I was privileged in the fact that even though we were very poor, that I wasn't allowed to work because my parents were worried that I would like the money and quit high school, right? Which a lot of students end up doing.
Right.
But I believe like if they're working at a job that's paying them a living wage while at the same time exploring a potential career, we can keep them to where they can obtain that credential, at least high school, and then continue to do other things. It doesn't necessarily have to be 4 year or 2 year, but they would be able to expand upon that, upon their passion. Where right now, they're working jobs just to get any money. That's not aligned with what they're interested in. It's very hard to connect them with the industry. I think SA Works does
Yeah.
a good job, but only for the summer, right? But most of our students have to work during the summer. They
Right.
can't do an internship, and it is, even though it is a paid internship, unfortunately, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, the Spurs owner that had an op-ed. No, Spurs owner, or yeah, I think it was, or Holt. One big mover and shaker in this city had an op-ed where basically they were asking for more businesses to participate with SA Works, because I believe a couple years ago they had more applications than they did jobs.
Right.
and internships, right? And so there's a big need for that. However, we believe, and I think we should just forego all of the paperwork, because I don't know about you, but I barely learned how to like succinctly describe myself like 10, 15 years ago on a cover letter. So I wasn't doing that when I was 18, 19, 20 or
Yeah.
21. And I just think that's, you know, again, that's outdated. Like having people do that cover letter and a resume to get a job. And then now we have a band-aid. Like there's a machine that shifts through those resumes to find the keywords. If you put them in there, to see if you get an interview, which
Yep.
again, I think that's another barrier. That's a bunch of BS. Like I just don't think you should be treating people like that. Like they spent so much time and there's a machine reading their resume. That's just my philosophy. And I think we mentioned earlier, like I'm a big dissenter in lots of things, but I just, at the end of the day, like once we get Wiin going, like my ultimate goal would be to get rid of like these applications and, you know, job descriptions that require like 5 years, blah, 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 and you entry level for like 29,000. Like, don't do that to people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. There was a really great job posting, or a tweet rather, of a guy who he said that he was turned down for a position because he did not have 5 years experience in a particular technology. And so he's like, that's pretty weird because I developed this technology and it's only been around for 2 years. So I'm not sure how like I could have had more experience than something that I've been working on and I released it and I maintain it. So I just like there's a lot of like hiring is broken. I think a lot of people would agree with that, and there's a lot of people trying to work on that particular problem. It's hard because there's a lot of people and there's not that many jobs per organization to kind of handle out. So it's like, what's the balancing act? You can get through a lot of applications, but it doesn't mean that the applications you actually get to look at means that they were the best ones. They're just the best ones at gamifying or understanding the system. And you know, there's an argument to be made like, well, if you understand the system, you must be smart. And it's like, well, you know, that's not always the case, right? You know, I might not be the best at the job, but I can write a really good resume and cover letter with all the hashtags and keywords that you want. And at the end of the day, like, you're going to hire me as the CEO of the company because I put all the right things in there and I said all the right things during the interviews. And when it comes right down to it, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I think I just don't think you should treat people like that, especially our young folks, because it's very disillusioning, right?
It's disheartening. Yeah.
As a young person, and then like it sets you up for later, like, I'm just why, you know, they're not even gonna look at me for my name, for whatever. I have too many typos, you know. Especially if you already have lots of existing barriers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't agree with it. I think it should be the other way around. Like you don't get to see the real person. So yes, I may look great on the cover letter on the resume, but what if I'm an introvert and the job requires that like I host a meeting with a big team every week, right? And I have to get to know them because I have to write reports. Like you can't see that until you meet the person. And I feel like, why can't you meet the person beforehand, you know? And why can't they meet you too, right? Because they need to interview you too. Like you're
Right.
getting a young person that you can cultivate a relationship, a career with, and train. And that's another thing. Like a lot of, I think, business industry doesn't want to train young folks. It's like a liability, or they might leave or whatever. If you treat them right, if you help them with their education, they will stay and they will be loyal. Like that's the best person that you want, right? Somebody that's brand new into the system.
Right.
And I just feel like right now we're thinking in the reverse, where in the future, what I hope to accomplish is to change that.
Cool. So we've talked about, you know, who you are and what you do. We talked about what you're passionate about, and we talked about, you know, what brought you to Geekdom. So tell me this, what sort of value have you gotten from being a part of the community?
say that I've gotten the value to manage my narrative.
Interesting.
Like I realize now that, I determine my narrative, and I take great pride in that. And that means a lot, for me now that I have kids, right?
Yeah.
To be a good example. I serve on a really cool board. I'm a Girl Scout troop leader for my daughter.
Oh, cool.
But so I do that as part of our community, right? Because I don't get paid. But I've learned a lot about how to help them get some self-confidence earlier, sooner than later. That when no means no, and it starts early. So get ready, Omar.
Oh boy.
It's just like what? But I also serve on the Boardroom Project, which is fairly new. I think we just had our second birthday, and we have a chapter in Dallas and Austin now. And our mission is to create board leaders, one girl/woman at a time, so that we can have female board members, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not on the board, you're on the board agenda. And I think I would have never accepted to serve, like if I hadn't gained that self-confidence from participating in the community. Like I used to think like board members, like you did that when you retired, like they have gray hair.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know, hey, you can have some young folks, and the young folks bring a perspective, middle age, everybody. Like, this is supposedly like a very diverse country, right? So why can't we have a diverse board?
Supposedly.
So that's hopefully I answered your question.
No, it did, and I find it very interesting because this is a unique answer that I haven't heard from anybody else here. But instead of it being like, the value that you get is, not to diminish anything that anyone else has said. Like this is just unique in comparison. Most people have said something like, I've gotten a lot of connections, I've been able to hear a lot of stories, but for you, it's like, well, I learned that I can control the story that I'm living in. Like I can control my narrative, and I can, tell my story, and I can help other people control their narratives. And I think that's interesting. Mm-hmm. That's very much I've gotten something out of it, and I want other people to get the same thing out of it. Specifically, I want to help women get more confident and understand that they are enough, that they are worth it, that they can be an important figure for an organization like a nonprofit or something else, and be able to have their voices heard and have impact at like the highest level at the board. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, we don't make the same equal amount that Amanda still. However, that doesn't mean that we can't be leaders, and there's more coming. I mean, and I'm glad, right? Because we both have daughters, and I want them to have all the opportunities that my son does.
Yeah.
Both for my Girl Scout and my daughter. And hopefully that will help push our really patriarchal system that does not allow for women to get paid equally overall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In general.
I can't wait to see my daughter kick butt out there. I mean, she's kicking butt right now walking, and that's a good thing. That's you got to walk before you run, and you got to run before you start taking over the world. So
yep, you ain't lying.
Yeah, so she'll get there step by step.
Yeah.
Very cool. So last question I want to ask you, who would you like to see be interviewed on Meet a Geek?
So I was trying to think about like maybe somebody nationally or internationally, but
I'm interviewing Barack Obama next week.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. That would be.
Oh my goodness.
That would be ridiculous. It's like, since when have you been a Geekdom member?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you know that when my nephew saw him when he first ran for president, he said, My nephew's part Puerto Rican, part Cuban, and part of whatever I am, German, Mexican, whatever. I'm a Heinz 57. And when he first saw him, he was like 4 or 5. He's like, "Mom, he looks like me," and it was so cool.
Wow.
Like a young kid to see that.
Yeah.
Right. And believe and he ran for president like in high school and junior high, and he's just a really cool kid. But
that's cool.
I just had to tell you that because that's like whenever I hear Barack Obama, I really think about my nephew Santana and sayings and how the impression, right, that you get like from a role model like that, and leadership like that.
Yeah.
That since we cannot get to Mr. President Obama, right? He's probably busy.
I think this show is like 2 small potatoes for him, to be honest.
I was thinking Cheryl Skelly is a really cool badass that I enjoy talking to.
Yeah.
Yep. And she has a new book coming out. And I think she was on the Texas Standard, that show from Texas Public Radio.
Okay, cool.
But that's who I would recommend.
I'll have my people reach out to her people, and we'll see if we can work something out. Let me
give her a text right now, Omar. Hold on
a second. Yeah. What up, Skulls? I got an opportunity for you.
She'll be like, "Who are you? What?"
Yeah. So how'd you get this number?
I actually went to graduate school with a good friend of hers who's the assistant city manager. So I could connect you with her, who may connect us with Cheryl.
And she's like, and who are you again? Like,
yeah. She'd be like, that was like, when did we graduate? What? I don't remember any of that before. I don't remember anything before COVID.
Yeah. Sheesh.
That's my excuse from now on. Was this before BC or will it be AC? Before COVID or after COVID?
Who knows? Who knows how long this is gonna take? I hope it disappears like a miracle. Like eventually. Maybe.
Yeah, ditto. Hey, I do. It's just not my style. Like I need to be going out, meeting, doing stuff.
I need places where I can jiggle my hips. That's what I want.
I need places where I can go eat and stuff my face.
Yeah.
With everybody watching, just live.
Because that's living. Everyone gather around. I have a whole thing of food right here and I'm going to eat it just for you. Here we go.
And I need somewhere to take my kids to play. They're going to go crazy in this house. Like,
yeah, it's true.
I think we've explored this house enough. I think it's been, If it weren't for camping, dude, if we didn't have a state park pass for camping, like somebody would be cracking the wall. Like even my dog enjoyed camping and he's like 13 years old. So it's like, get out.
I can just imagine dogs like, that was a good experience.
Get me out of here. This is like not Groundhog Day again.
Oh man, poor dog.
For me, for us. But no, but I'm hoping, I'm praying, I'm like lighting candles and sending out good vibes that like we get this under control soon and we can help people get back to work. Actually, our startup can, and most importantly, our community can get back to being a community, right?
Yep. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the day where we can all get back into the space and be like, hey, I've never met you before. Let's meet each other and let's learn about what we're doing.
Yeah, I've seen you on Slack, but like, is this you? Are you real? Can we have a beer?
Yeah, exactly. And most people know me from Slack because even like when everyone was in the space, I was still on Slack.
Yeah, well, and they probably don't know me. Well, maybe they will after this, but like I try to get on there and I'm like, wow, there's all these channels. Where am I? But it would be really cool just to hang out and have a drink with someone and share thoughts and, use the space for what it was meant for.
Yeah, real talk on that. All right. And on that note, I'd love to end our interview here. Thank you so much, Sandra, for being here and having a chat with me and sharing, your passions and your story and the things that you're doing. Thank you so much for that. That was really, I feel inspired. I feel motivated, and I feel very excited about what you're going to be doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
and it was
of
lovely
course.
to chat with you.
Thank you. I do appreciate that as well. And
Hopefully we'll meet in person one day.
I hope so. Yeah, instead of like e-meet. And for all of you watching, thank you so much. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you did like the video, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up, and also that little bell notification icon, which will let you know anytime that new Meet a Geek episodes do come out. And of course, finally, I want you all to remember that one thing: always be helpful. We'll see y'all next time.